All right, ladies and germs, we are back with another episode of the Summoning Hour podcast. This week I am rejoined by eCentral or Christian Guerra. I'm sorry, probably didn't say that
Guerra.
right. Guerra. So welcome back. And since you've been away since week 4 of the CR6 season, there's been a lot of changes for you. You've gone from player on Texas A&M to bench player and caster for CR6, and now you're an analyst for Dark Zero Esports. So that sounds like a crazy amount of change, even just since the February timeline. How's it been going for you?
Yeah, it's been wild. Like, we were actually just mentioning off cam just a little bit about how it just feels like time has really flied. I remember casting, and I was really starting to see strides with casting, but then all of a sudden, Dark Zero just really, I guess, I want to say that they took a chance on me, but to be honest with you, I just felt like I put in a quite amount of effort into the application process, and so I'm just really happy that it really stood out to them, and they did take that chance, but I think that at least I hope I can speak for them that it's been going well.
Absolutely. I mean, I we'll have you talk about your story in a second, but like I
Mhm.
to hear that someone who is basically in their dorm room just playing, I say just playing, but I know the amount of work that Texas A&M was putting into their Rainbow Six team, but like playing in your dorm room and then going, I think I want to try casting. Oh, I'm going to focus on casting. Oh, I'm going to be doing a professional job for a professional organization all in the span of 2.5 months, just about. Like, that is a considerable amount of effort on your part to grow that much and to be at a such a polished level to then be recognized for that effort and quality. Like that, I mean, that's just hard work and dedication right there.
Yeah, and I've certainly had some great role models. Like I began casting last semester, basically with my idol being Intero, and Intero is basically everyone's idol. But I got to know him personally before he was a caster, and so I got to see the man behind the voice, really just being able to kind of shine even more of his insight. Um, just in regards to just like getting by in esports, and he was just like I guess a humble servant you could say at the time. And so it was really awesome to see him grow and develop his own little story. And then for me to have something very similar. Like, to be honest with you, I still feel like I understand that I've been growing really rapidly, but to me, it just feels like, I don't know, it feels like where I'm supposed to be, right?
Yeah, I mean, as you have those aspirations of what you want to be building towards, like once you get to where that goal was set, it's like, of course, this is where I'm at because I wanted to get there. I was working towards this, and maybe the time might seem a little fast, but I mean, when you get to that point where you recognize you've hit those goalposts, you're like, yeah, this is right. So let's get a little context on your history within esports and how you got started with just even being interested in gaming.
Sure, that's actually I love talking about this. So whenever I basically started playing games, I started playing games at a very early youth. Specifically on handheld consoles with games like Pokemon and I guess that was the main thing. But Mario, like Nintendo consoles, I guess I was very loyal to Nintendo. So I was definitely interested in video games at a very early age. So just throughout my growth and development, I always had video games to lean on. So I've always been very interested. And then just also growing up around traditional sports, you kind of want to blend the two together at some point. I think that was like an early like 2010, 2012. It was an idea that me and a friend had. And so I've always wanted to do something in esports. I know I tell people that I wanted to like have a team or grow a community more specifically. So that's what kind of streaming can open you up now. I'm sure you enjoy your own community, right? So it's like that's basically what I wanted to do, and then from there, I've just been wanting to develop the scene however I can.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. Like, as soon as you start putting things out to social media or you start trying to involve other people and you're trying to like figure out what your place is in the world of or in your little ecosystem of what you're trying to influence, and you start thinking about how you interact with those people and they start interacting with you, you're like, okay, I'm carving out this little slice for me, but what does that mean? And how do I really start bolstering and start getting that validation? Kind of like early esports of just being like, how do I validate my existence in this space and making sure that it's valuable or worthwhile for other people to participate.
Yeah, that's a really strong message as well. I've certainly been in situations where people, have told me like, okay, you're not going to get anywhere playing video games. Certainly had a hard time convincing my parents of things like that, and to be honest with you, I still do. But on the bright side, just being able to show the progression of where I've been and then where I am now, and certainly being with a professional org like Dark Zero really helps out there. But I guess that's just one of the things is I never lost faith in myself, and I still haven't. And my parents certainly understand that they're willing to support me as long as I continue to at least give it whatever effort I'm give.
Absolutely. And now, actually, a quick question: are you a Texan native?
Oh yes, I'm a very loyal Texan.
So, I mean, that in itself provides a bit of a challenge. I mean, Texas is football country, period. How has that reception been from your peers or other people that like you went to grade school and high school with about you getting involved with esports when it's not that Texas, everything is bigger, everything hits harder, and three a day drills with the football team?
Yeah, I definitely grew up within Texas sports, so I certainly know the level of grind that goes into it. I guess in terms of friends, that one friend in particular that we kind of had those dreams and aspirations of kind of making content for esports. He certainly supports me. He's actually doing work in Houston, or at least trying to get there, and so that's pretty awesome. We still keep in touch. In regards to just Texas in general, I think one of the interesting things about last semester in Collegiate R6 was the fact that we had an all Californian final. And so to go from all California to all Texas, I guess it certainly speaks volumes for the two states. We certainly have reputations.
I didn't put that together. I put it together that it was an all Texas final this time. I didn't even think about it being an all California last time. But what was funny was that CSU LB was the team that knocked both of you all out last in the first season, and yet
Yeah, it was.
and then Texas A&M knocked them out this time around, and then it was the two teams that were in the top 16 and top 8 or round of 16 round of 8 that were in the finals this time. I thought that was a nice little wrap up from the first season to the second season and just having that history already being ingrained and starting to create some of those top tier rivalries.
Yeah, and I think the funny thing about the last time that I was on the podcast, we talked about how, at least I might have brought it up that Texas A&M at the time, we were actually 2 weeks. We developed our full roster that you see now 2 weeks later than the rest of the teams. We had a roster going into the season, and three people just kind of dropped out, so we had to use all of our roster moves in order to acquire the remaining team that you see now. So we had a little bit of a slow start, but then whenever it came to this semester, we kind of had a good foundation, and we were able to really build on the chemistry that we already developed the entirety of last. So
Yeah, and I mean, for a team that came together so late, you cannot argue with 8 wins and a tie in the regular season to put you in. I think you all finished second in your group.
see, I'm trying to recall. I think we definitely finished first within our little subgroup, I guess is the best way to put it, because it's broken up into divisions, and then from there are three groups within those divisions. So we finished first of our subgroup. I'm not sure where we fall in terms of that entire Falcon division. Somewhere near the top.
Yeah, clearly near the top. And yeah, I mean, the history that that team went through, and just to see how well they performed. And I mean, I got to play with you guys the first time that we streamed, and it was just like I felt like I was not just being carried, but like it was almost effortless how much you were carrying me. It was ridiculous. So,
Uh,
talk us through the season. We last spoke at, or no, you were still talking about how you got into games and how you got into esports. Now, what was that switch like? You mentioned your kind of inspiration for getting involved with streaming or casting. What was that jump like and seeing your friend's progression and then moving into that same realm yourself?
Um, that's a really good question. I guess I've always, growing up, you always watch these really funny video game channels, such as like Rooster Teeth, Achievement Hunter, just very, of course, other Texas channels. um, but you just see content like that being made, and the amount of joy that video games bring people. It's like, okay, well, what prevents me from spreading that joy? So that's kind of like a goal that I had for myself going into it. And to be honest with you, it still is, but obviously right now I'm kind of have a little bit more work on my plate, I suppose. So right now it's actually just about balancing work and fun.
Fair enough. Now, when you're when you made that transition to casting, I mean, Rainbow Six is not a simple game by any means. Like,
Mhm.
you have people pixel hunting, you have people who have to have extreme knowledge of the maps. How is that education? How did you self-educate yourself on how to communicate the complexity of the game in such a short period of time where CR6 was picking you up and having you cast and being able to be that kind of voice of expertise?
So one of the things that I pride myself on is being able to adapt from game to game. I actually started off my, I guess you could call it esports career, but not necessarily professional at the time. It was just I ranked very highly in Overwatch, and you have to have a certain amount of complexity to be amongst the top players. Even if it's not based on mechanical skill, you have to have quite a lot of game sense and managing some of the ult economy you may hear in that game. So whenever I transferred that to like PUBG and just picking up more, I guess, squad type of communication and coordination. So basically tying that all together, I would say that I had a high knowledge of both those games, considering the amount of hours I put in. So once I transitioned to Siege, it wasn't necessarily the level of quality of knowledge that I would need to gain. It was more about just putting in the hours and learning some of the maps, like you did mention. That was probably the most complex part.
What was your strategy for approaching these maps? Because between the destruction, between wall reinforcement, between weird kind of meta gadget picks for anyone who's playing in the ranked play or in the pro league where you have special mirror placements that are only specific when paired with another operator, that kind of stuff. Like, how is that ingrained into you and like really able to just understand what was going to happen when someone was trying something really different?
Sure. So I guess one of the things that I started off doing whenever I was initially getting involved in the game, I played a lot of Thermite and Thatcher, which are two of the, I guess, fundamentals for any sort of team comp. So you kind of understand what walls people want opened and why people will kind of. One of the great things about, at least whenever I was in the newer community, was just people instructing me as to what walls to open up, and not necessarily give a reason, but just kind of more instructions. And then from there, you start to understand why you're doing certain things. And then the same goes for Mira. So I'd say I played the operators that kind of, you open walls, but then also you watch the walls being opened with Mira. So kind of counteracted the two.
Fair enough. Now, so you moved into casting, you started building that expertise. Now, obviously, there's a great deal of analysis going on with your ability to keep up with the meta, keep up with how teams are performing and what they're doing, and that probably gave you a firm foundation on your current gig now as an analyst. What was that transfer like from going from like entertainment and direct communication of what's going on to a viewer to being now what I'm assuming is the role of looking at VODs, however you can get them, and breaking down your opponents, breaking down your own gameplay, own team's gameplay, and then just being able to communicate that in a more informational or maybe even instructive way. Like, what's your approach to all that?
Sure. So whenever I was casting, I would say that, I was always looking for advice from people. And one of the things that they would tell me was I look at things very subjectively, which was good in terms of presenting that or portraying that to the audience. But my entertainment didn't really come through. I suppose like I wasn't myself. I was more, just reciting information or seeing things on a screen and kind of presenting that to the audience in a very bland manner. But so even though I always wanted to work on that from a casting perspective, whenever it came time to bringing it to analysis, it was very straightforward. I understood how to present the information in a qualitative or sorry, with I guess quality. Um, but then it just became a matter of being able to digest the information, or sorry, present it in a way that it can be digested quickly. So I guess you could say that the analysis work that I do now is somewhat very similar to what I was already doing before. I just put it in paper form, really, so I could give to to BKN or BC, for example, and they can digest it very quickly.
I'm not sure how much you can divulge about like your specific tactics for analysis and bringing it to the team, but I'm really curious about R6 in general. Is that there's no replays, so you basically have to rely on either the the organization that's hosting the game, that's broadcasting the game, to give you a VOD. There might be observers who are team based and like recording that way, or just each player is recording their own VOD basically. What's the behind the scenes like for you and getting footage when the game doesn't inherently support it?
Yeah, one of the great things about being involved with the pro scene is just the fact that there's always a dedicated observer, of course. So you, in pro league, you have a very consistent spectator, um, so you can kind of see how they maneuver throughout the map. And to be honest with you, they actually do a really good job. So this is more of a compliment to them, being able to process all that information. So whenever I'm focusing on one team and specifically to counter or to gather intel about, a lot of it is context clues, really. Just being able to see outlines and sometimes the overview really helps, but a lot of it is mostly like just trying to understand from a fundamental basis what are they doing and then how they want to be doing it.
Now, I've always had one thought about observing in R6, and you can tell me if this is a little like too finicky just because I'm still really new at analyzing the maps or looking at them and understanding them, especially from the observer cam. But if they always oriented the camera north to south, it feels like there would be a better way of communicating the map as opposed to rotating around and getting into like all the nooks and crannies of where players are when you're looking at the floor level.
Mhm.
What's your thought on that? Like keeping the north-south orientation, except for obviously when you go into first person when you're looking at through a player's eyes.
Yeah, it's tough. There's like, I mean, it's like you mentioned from a whenever I first started watching the game, and this was like way back. It was before I even started playing. I was watching the game. One of the hardest things to do was just understand what exactly I was looking at because from a bird's eye view, it's kind of hard to understand where everyone is in relation to each other, especially whenever you flip it to first person, right? So I don't know how to fix the spectator system to make it a little bit more new viewer friendly. I think that's one of the things that CS:GO has a huge advantage in. It's just like being able to process the information. Just it's just very simple, right? Obviously, I might not know the maps, but after several sessions of watching CS:GO, I'll be able to understand exactly where people like to play and why they like to be there. In Siege, it's a lot more fluid. Obviously, you have rotates that you can make, and you're not even sure why those rotates are being made, like why are walls being shot open. But I don't know. It's certainly a complex game. But once you start playing it and understanding it, the payoff is really huge for entertainment value.
Yeah, I think the last time we spoke, I had mentioned that the first operator that really clicked with me was Twitch, and with the F9
Mhm.
rifle, and it was just like, oh, now I can play the game because now I have a gun that I actually understand within the first hour of playing an operator, as opposed to like some of the other guns that are just like crazy recoil, crazy just spread and everything, and not quite understanding the use of that gun. The F9 was that perfect little nudge in the right direction for me. So as soon as you can survive a little bit longer, then you start getting reacquainted with the map, and then as you start doing more complex things, you start understanding more of the map even after you've died. So, I mean, the payoff is the payoff, as you said, is really really great as you start finding that success, no matter how small it is.
Yeah, I remember whenever I first started playing the game, I would just like run in. I remember specifically on a canal, which is a casual map, but I would just run in and I would be so confused as to what exactly I was getting shot through. And in Call of Duty, you hear about like wall bangs and stuff and getting shot through walls, and it's incredibly lucky. But in this game, oh my goodness, it just felt like everyone was shooting me through walls, and I was so confused walking down hallways and getting shot by absolutely everything. And um, it was a struggle at first, definitely for the first week. I would say it was really tough, and even I mean the second week obviously was still very hard, but at least I was starting to get a little bit more of a grasp.
Yeah, and then for me, like going like canal, especially like getting spawn peeked through the watchtower room, and then just 20, not even 20 seconds into the round, it's like bam, done, and no idea where the shot came from until I get the kill cam, and it's like through one tiny bullet hole view in that one window that you could barely see the outline that had been shot through, only because it was in shadow already. And it's like, man, this guy's been playing like 500 hours. He knows exactly what to do.
Yeah, I certainly had situations like that as well. To be honest, I still can't pull that off against some of the newer players, which I'm not sure if that's just a testament of how much more I need to grind, or I don't know, maybe some guys just really have things figured out. I don't know.
Yeah. Now, how much do you get to play with the Dark Zero team?
So let's see. Personally, I haven't played with them too much, mostly because I know that Nyx and Hot and Cold like to play a lot of ranked. But some of the other more team members, like I know Mint plays. Funny enough, one of my first interactions with Dark Zero was actually jumping in a ranked game. Just I was not associated with the team at the time, and I jumped in with the trio queue. And back then, they actually had internet issues, so they literally just disconnected from my match, and it was just a 2v5. And so we were just sitting there like, well, it's not exactly the greatest luck, but aside from that, we have scrimmed them once, and we are looking to scrim them a few more times. And by we, I mean the Texas A&M team. So it's certainly been a challenge, but some of the information that we took away from that, it's just invaluable. Like it's incredible what, I mean, and they didn't even tell us much, to be honest with you. It was just very simple fundamentals that we just seemed to be overlooking at the time, and we carried it obviously to the grand finals. So we were really thankful for that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Having that extra perception and perception check on what you're doing, just having another high caliber team really understand what you're doing, and then really being able to say, here's how you can improve. That kind of information is invaluable. Speaking of Texas A&M, so they made it to the grand finals. They had a two map lead, and then it all just seemed to start unraveling slowly yet surely. How is that for you to watch?
It was tough, obviously. Um, After that loss on Villa, once we realized that it was over, it was we could say, at least I can speak for everyone on the team when I say that was definitely the most competitively disheartening thing that I've experienced in a very long time, like since playing sports. It wasn't even necessarily about blowing the lead either. It was just simply like losing, right? That's I don't know. I In all my years of competition, I've only been that discouraged a few times, and that was certainly one of the worst. And I know that the rest of the team feels that way. For me personally, I could not sleep that night. We'd done so much prep work leading into it, and to be honest with you, a majority of the prep work really went into the CSULB match and the UCSD match. For U of H, we had an idea of how we wanted to approach it, but to be honest with you, once we jumped in game, um, given the weird circumstance of them having to take a 4v5, I think we just kind of like I think people will misunderstand and think that we took the game for or the match for granted, but that wasn't the case at all. It was more of just needing to adapt to a very strange situation that we hadn't needed to face in the regular season before that really threw us off. And I think you could tell even from map 1 that it affected us throughout the entire matchup.
Yeah, I definitely got that sense. It felt like almost like the pacing was off. It's like in baseball when the batter keeps taking a step out and then the pitcher's thrown over to first. Like the pacing of the match just gets really off, and anyone who's found a rhythm or is expecting a certain pace to the game, they get thrown off, and then suddenly your top fragger's not able to catch anything, or your your anchor is just not in the right place at the right time, and it's like, okay, what's this thing? How do we change the pace back in our favor? And that first match, like it got a little rocky, and then you guys pulled back ahead, and you got the first map. So I thought, like, okay, they're going into the second map. This is going to be fine. I forgot. Did you actually go up 2-0?
Yes, it was 2-0. The map order was, let's see, it was Border, Clubhouse, Bank. I'm trying to recall. Oregon, and then Villa. So we went up on Border and Clubhouse, which Border was their pick, and obviously given that the fact that they play a 4v5, Border is not our strongest map, but that was the map that we actually prepped for. We knew that going into it that that was going to be the first matchup of the evening. So we prepped for that the hardest. Um, so I think one of the things is that we were overthinking it a little bit too much. Maybe some of the strategies that we had going into it, they were a little bit looser in terms of how we constructed it, given the fact that we didn't play Border so much. So it wasn't nearly as organized as we had for like Bank, for example. And that really showed. And that's why they picked that map. But once we got to Clubhouse, yeah, we were definitely in a groove then. That was just, I think I think my teammates said we're undefeated on Clubhouse this season. So we were definitely, those were the two maps we knew going in were going to be played out.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned Villa, but and Villa was, as far as I could tell, as far as how the maps were tracked during the regular season, from at least weeks 3 through 9, you never touched Villa, or there was another map that hadn't been played for at least 6 weeks during
Mhm.
the season. I don't know about weeks 1 and 2, but or during the playoffs, but for such a large gap of time to go without having seen a map, I can only imagine that one that was kind of the meta and where a lot of teams were also not going towards, but then also just it ended up being a wild card pick for both teams, because I don't think Houston had picked that map either for that same duration of time, from the data CR6 was able to give me. So what was that like when you saw going into Villa for map 5, which is also already a very different experience considering it was best of, or 2 maps during the regular season and a best of 1 in the playoffs, and the or in the group playoffs, and then or regional playoffs, and then best of 3 in the division playoffs. Like, what was that like going to best of 5 and then onto a map that you're apparently unfamiliar with from what the data was showing me?
Uh-huh. Yeah, from a data standpoint, I could definitely see why people would think that we're not necessarily strong in Villa, but to be honest with you, the entire team actually loves Villa. We actually like playing the map a lot. We have strats for the map too. Like we have strats for every map, but Villa, I'm not sure if we discussed this during the last podcast, but a lot of teams at the time were very uncomfortable with Villa. And we were definitely one of those teams. And so going into season 2, we wanted to make sure that there wasn't a single map where we would just be uncomfortable entirely playing. Like if we went there, we know it's an auto loss. Like so Villa was actually one of the maps that we developed strats for very early on in the season. And so, by the time I'm trying to think. I think it was University of Utah that we had to play Villa on, but by then, no teams had any footage of us on Villa, so we were able to play the map, and we actually did really well. And I think it was a 7-4 victory for Villa that time. So in regards to practice and preparation for Villa, we were actually pretty well prepared. I think it was more of a wild card map for U of H. However, I will say that we thought that UH was going to ban Villa, given the fact that they prefer to ban that map more often than not. So I think for them, they must have or probably did prep for Villa a little bit more, knowing that they were going to ban Coastline.
Yeah, that's a pretty deep
It was
planned
yeah, it was
strategy. That's a pocket pick then. I mean, like, if you set up that expectation of we're banning this map, we're banning this map, we're not playing this map consistently, but then in the background you're finding scrim partners, you're finding ways to focus on that map and then just be able to pull that out at the last minute. I mean, map 5, you're pulling out a map that seemingly has no interest to you, and then suddenly it becomes problematic for your opponents.
Yeah, it was. I honestly loved the matchup. It was a really awesome matchup. Regardless of the outcome, um, it was just so complex. And I think that's something that's probably undervalued is, just being in a best of five, just being in a situation where you can only ban one map and you have to play the rest of them. Um, Obviously, ideally, we would have 3-0'd and not need to worry about the last two. So
Right.
we prepped especially hard for the first three, but um yeah, it was I don't know, it was an awesome sensation, to be honest with you. I'm sure it was for UH as well, and, we're certainly looking forward to that same opportunity next time and just working on, I guess, improving our what's the word? Just the duration of play, of very high competitive play.
Yeah, I have to admit, I got to watch the whole series, and when that last round ticked, I shut off my Xbox and threw the controller a little bit. I was frustrated for y'all. It man, it wasn't a good ending to the evening, that's for sure.
Mm-mm. Yeah, and one of the so this is Gus, I guess, an awesome story. I actually did record like a little video just recapping our series before heading into the U of H matchup. And so whenever we lost, obviously it was really rough. Like the first 2 days, we just kind of let it sulk a little bit, and everyone was kind of coping with it their own ways. But then after the fact, I just kind of sent the guys all the video that I had showcasing just exactly what we had done, because we beat the team that knocked us out last semester. We beat them. We beat and so we knocked out a former finalist, right? And so then the matchup after that, we faced UCSD. We ended up beating the former champions, and so from there, we ended up, becoming a grand finalist of our own this semester. So, even though we didn't win the whole thing, I definitely wanted to reaffirm to the guys that, even though we didn't win it all, we definitely got insanely far compared to where we were last semester.
Absolutely. The growth and the improvement and just the consistency of play. I mean, you have to go back to the fact that your roster was so raw and fresh and just new working together, and yet you still end up rolling one of the best records in the entire regular season. Like, that's paramount to like your overall performance. Like with a new roster, most people might even look at that as like a rebuilding season, as a season to get used to each other and like just try and see as far as you can go, not aim for the top. I mean, and the way that you all were playing even back in week 4 up to that point, it was like these guys are contenders, and they were already contenders last season, even with the roster change. They're able to compete. And then, just as you said, you took out the former champions, you took out the team that knocked you out last time, and the team that knocked out your opponents. Like, that's got to be bolstering in terms of like your own confidence just going into it. But like we said, moving into a best of 5 format is going to push you to your limits. The only way I could imagine making it worse is if it was a LAN final, where people may not have LAN experience. That zero latency or near zero latency is going to play with some people's timing and their feel if they're not on their own hardware. Like that kind of stuff just adds up real fast. But the fact that everyone got to be in their comfort where they were probably playing the rest of their matches during the season, and just coming in and being able to say, we took it this far, and that's way farther than you probably expected to get.
Yeah, I will say that a LAN would have been an awesome situation for that finals. That would have been incredible. And in hindsight, I really wish we could have set something up with UAH. I don't know if it would have been realistic, but um, obviously, given the fact that Dark Zero has a team house and they can play, they play in a 5-man environment, right? Every single day. That was certainly something that we were looking forward to doing, for A&M specifically, just being able to sit in a room, all together, even for practices, stuff like that. It really goes a long way. Just being able to discuss things face to face right then and there. It helps solve a lot of conflicts that we normally have. And for any of the teams listening out there who might be interested, just one of the things that we really I guess you could say mastered it. Just the how we handle conflict, because every time we really play a match, regardless of win or loss, at least 3/5 of the roster or 4/5 of the roster would always meet up afterwards and just kind of not even necessarily discuss the previous matchup. Obviously did a little bit, but just just enjoying each other's company. Just regards to eating food, right? Like no one can be mad eating food.
Oh man, I could only imagine what you guys do to the late night cafeteria setup. If I mean, you come off of a
We're
high
very
like
respectful. I'll say
yeah.
that.
I mean, I remember eating cheeseburgers and corn dogs at midnight, 1 in the morning, just going, yes, this is how I want to spend my night talking about WoW and playing and eating complete junk. But you come together as a team, and that's how you're enjoying it. Like, that's some good times right there.
Yeah, that was the ultimate goal of this team, was just to provide some really awesome memories. And I can definitely say that we've certainly achieved some of probably my I mean, I could say my greatest video game moments ever, but some of my greatest moments in my life, really. An awesome experience overall.
Absolutely. I wish I had that opportunity. I'm glad every one of you is just soaking this up and really making the most of it. And that's one thing that I just love about esports clubs on campus right now is that they are building something for themselves and to something that reflects their own passions. And a lot of schools are starting to get involved with that too. And I'm loving seeing the collaboration. Has there been any notification from the administration or the rest of the club to kind of recognize the CR6's work that the team put in?
So I guess the best way to describe it, it's like a yes and no. Siege is going to be one of those tough games. I think it's in a similar boat with CS:GO, where I guess the game is considered violent, of course. So it's tough to gain recognition from the school in that regards. However, we did have like some shout outs like on Twitter, in the Texas A&M Discord. So it's something that I know that I'm personally working more with some of the staff members to try and see, exactly how much we can legitimize our team. Because given the fact we aren't, number two in the nation, I would argue number one, of course. But I just think that we're at a point in time where we have a lot of leverage in terms of how we want to approach meeting with the administration.
Yeah, and I mean, all in all, like this season started in February. We're basically in June now. Not administrations can only move so fast, and they can only start understanding context as quickly as things happen, um, and wherever your club leadership is at, and how much they're really trying to push or make a move for what their vision is. So it's kind of understandable that it's still in that kind of plotting, figuring things out from their perspective. They have a lot of liability on the line and a lot of I mean, it's
Mhm.
Texas A&M, so they have a huge reputation for sports, for academics, so they kind of have to wade into this probably slower than most of us would like.
Yes, and we certainly understand the process and the reputation of A&M. I would say that our team does a really good job of upholding that reputation. I'm sure that if we were able to meet with them, they would understand. But there's just so many other factors going into that whole thing. And also, I guess just another thing to mention is that Collegiate R6 is just in its inaugural year. So I'd say for a year, the growth that they've had alone, um, it's been quite a marvel to behold, I guess. So I'm definitely excited to see exactly how legitimate A&M can treat us. But we'll have to see. I'll certainly love to give an update sometime in the future.
Yeah, I think CR6 tweeted out saying like they had something like 108 different schools and teams in this second season within the first year. Like, and that was, I think it was close to double the numbers from the first season. That's nuts.
It's been crazy, that's for sure.
And I mean, kudos to CR6 for throwing together the production value that they did, and for what was it? It's space productions they did the last few
Yes.
weeks. Like awesome of them to jump in and help out. The casters they did a great job explaining things, and I mean I recognize everyone's in their dorm room doing their best, and but everyone put out their best effort into this, and it was really refreshing to see how much everyone was just willing to take the little hiccups in production and stuff like that and just run with it and just still try and create the best experience for anyone watching. Like that's a big deal, and I'm excited to see how CR6 comes back next year even more well formed and more polished with their experience and what kind of entertainment they want to provide for everyone.
Yeah, I certainly agree with you there. It was actually incredible to see the amount, the production value alone really jumped up from a single semester really. I guess for like now I just take it for granted, but man, I honestly don't even remember back when we were just on a very simple overlay or anything like that. It's been such a while.
Yeah, and really, like, because the first season ended like late November, early December, and then the second season started up in February, I think. And with the 2 week holiday there, and probably not having access to a whole bunch of like the casters or talent who was just trying to make things work while everyone's on holiday. So you really had like a month and a half to make any changes between the two seasons and then ride that change throughout the season that was even bigger than the last one. So handling that amount of change and executing on it the way they did, I'm going to say that it was a job well done for sure.
Yeah, it certainly is impressive. I don't know very many leagues, even in Siege alone, right, that can handle that type of change in such a small amount of time. I heard plenty of other things about amateur leagues in Siege, and I know for a fact that collegiate R6 is, I mean, it's probably somewhere within the top four, obviously because it's like Pro League, Challenger League, and then CCS. I'd say, and then I'd say we're probably like right underneath CCS. If I'm missing a league right now, it's just because it's solely because I haven't kept up with it, but that's just the order in my mind, at least for now.
Now, stepping back away from production of the season, what was your big takeaway from like how the different divisions performed and the locations that they were from? Like, was there a region that you saw as significantly stronger than others? Were there or any matches in the playoffs, whether it was regional or national playoffs, that were just like, how in the hell did that happen? What happened? I wish you had more information about this. Was there anything that really stood out to you?
I would say that the entire Lion division was just very. I have two answers. Lion was very stacked to begin with at the beginning of the season, and they had the former champions, they had the runner ups as well, because it was very region based in the sense that you could divide up the servers in an easier manner. That was the logic going into it. So all the Californian teams got stuck on Lion, the Central teams on Falcon, and so on and so forth. So Lion was definitely one of those teams to watch out for going into it, and they ended up having two teams in the, I guess the top eight once again, and then just another team that was really surprising to most people was actually the Falcon division, right? The division that we're in and that U of H is in. We knew. Funny enough, Falcon division itself was very tight knit. Sam Houston State is another one of those universities that is inside of it, another Texas school. And they even got into the playoffs, which is awesome for them because they weren't necessarily expecting to get there. But it's just really cool to see the Texas teams really get along when it comes to Siege. Like Sam Houston actually hosted a LAN event that, let's see, ourselves, UH, Clear Lake. That's all one team. Unfortunately, UH couldn't attend to that one. Sam Houston and then UNT, University of North Texas. So it was actually a pretty successful LAN event for Siege, and that was just one of those things that it was really awesome to meet some of the other teammates from that, from the game that we play, and it was a really cool experience from that alone. So yeah, Falcon Division definitely surprised a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm looking at the team list right now and having Maryville in there, having let's see, uh,
See, I don't remember
Houston.
University of Colorado, um, Boulder, I guess Colorado Springs, right? That's the name of the team. UCCS. They were the team that we faced in the top 16 last season, and they were actually ranked higher than us this season, even though we beat them. So it was a little bit of a surprise to A&M, but I think we had our game against them where we ended up beating them once again. So we kind of solidified our role on the top of our group. So we were certainly happy about that.
going into the nationals and the national playoffs, and even outside of Texas A&M's matchups, was there anything that you were surprised by? I know the one thing that caught me off guard was Akron taking out
Oh
Ohio,
yeah.
number one. Who was number one?
Oh, Central Florida, right?
Yeah, Central Florida.
To be honest with you, we faced Central Florida last semester, and I know they beat us pretty handily. I don't know how good they were this season though. Like obviously they were ranked first, so that's incredible for them. That was certainly one of the matchups that we were looking forward to. Um, if we ended up getting there, but it didn't pan out that way. I guess it would have been another revenge story because we faced them last season in a Swiss bracket, so we were both I think like oh man, I think we were both like 2-2 at the time or like 3-2 or somewhere around there. So we definitely wanted to face them and see exactly how good they were, where we hold up in the league. But yeah, Akron knocking them out was actually huge, and Akron's uprisal as well up until I believe the UH or no British Columbia I believe was the team knocked them out. So that British Columbia I guess actually would be the most surprising team because I think I casted them week 1 or 2, and then they just ended up really steamrolling throughout the entirety of the league. So
It was actually Houston that knocked out Akron, and then Houston knocked out
oh
British
right, right,
Columbia.
right.
British Columbia knocked out Ohio State. Now that British
Okay.
Columbia was 4 seed and Ohio was 5th seed, so that was a close matchup based on stats at least. But yeah, for the 16 seed to knock out the number 1 seed when Central Florida won a perfect season in the regular season, and then a round differential of 99, like
Oof.
holy crap.
Do you happen to know what our round differential was? It's probably somewhere in the 70s, I'd like to say. I don't remember though.
Let's see. Let's see. You guys were at where are you at? 78. So definitely not bad by any
Yeah,
means. And
that's
it's
not.
like,
Mhm,
and I mean that's kind of the difference between the one tie and just however long your matches went, right?
mhm.
So I mean, all in all, a great season. There was a lot of coverage. I'm looking forward to more VODs being available or weaseling my way into matches and observing just so that I have some more context on how matches go next season. And so I can actually make the Check Your Six podcast a little bit stronger than just me reading off numbers and having kind of these half-informed opinions and while I'm just staring at a spreadsheet. But I do what I can. So moving forward, what's something that you would like to see um, change or develop more within CR6?
um, let's see. I know that one of the things that we're probably going to be discussing is just some of the scheduling. Because how do I put this? TMU is probably one of the more devoted schools to the league, and I'm sure that CR6 understands that. Um, but there were a few situations where we absolutely needed certain like schedule changes just given spring break, given the Sam Houston State University land, those two in particular, and then also our final exam week. And so one of the things was that we didn't reschedule for spring break, but it was kind of a last minute decision that teams could do so. So we had already made plans to play during spring break. And obviously we understand that not every team has spring break during the same week, but the fact that we played it out and then the entire season got delayed and pushed into our finals, I think that's something that just scheduling alone could be fixed. And I know that specifically the admins over there already are aware of the issues that it may cause to change the schedule. I think that was probably the biggest learning experience for everyone in the on the staff was just exactly seeing what type of dominoes fall if one little thing in terms of scheduling was changed.
Yeah, I don't even want to think about what kind of headache they went through trying to set up this season to begin with. Because, I mean, if their first season that they ran was in the fall, there's already different holidays and different schedules to deal with, anyways. But then you come into the fall or into the spring, you don't have any context really because you still have to plan out all the different holidays. You still have to plan out all the different vacations. You have to plan out when or when the finals weeks are, when teams are, what schools have earlier quarter or semesters ending or later semesters, and how that all matches up. Like, that's just a logistics nightmare to me.
Yeah, it was I would say just, the most tedious thing was just that final exam week. That was definitely the roughest one, and, it was the hardest to prep for in terms of our matchup. Um, I guess on the flip side, like, as strange as it sounds, once the final exams were over for us, we were able to prep insanely hard for the former 2 finalists, which is it was obviously a benefit to us, but at the same time, it would be nice to not necessarily need to worry about gameplay during, final exams. I'm sure everyone everyone can agree on that, and I guess another thing that's just really awesome is, this league is only, I guess, officially 1 year old, so it's incredible to see, how much they listen to the community, and, I'm sure they know that they have a lot of growing to do, but still, like, it's certainly high value for how long it's been around.
And from here, they're only going to get better. The admin side, the
Exactly.
back end scheduling, all of that's going to get better. The content coverage is going to get better. I've heard some of the things that they're talking about doing, and it's like, okay, there you go. It's a solid plan forward. And these guys, as I've talked to them on Discord a few different times, like they want this to be the best that it can be, and they know where they came short. So it's going to be on the up, and with more than just a month and a half to improve into the next official season, I think we'll see some pretty big landmark changes going into that fall season again.
Yeah, and I know A&M is definitely really excited for it. Obviously, we're gunning for the top spot, but we're certainly excited for everything that's going to be coming our way.
I guess all that's left is for you to tell us a little bit more about Dark Zero. Like, I'm not entirely familiar with them as a team and as an organization. Maybe you can give them a little highlight reel on the podcast, give them a shout out, and tell us a little bit more about what your role entails.
Sure, and I guess you kind of asked me a little bit earlier about me being a native Texan. One of the awesome things about Dark Zero is that they actually are located in Houston. So whenever I heard them, reach out, whenever I saw BKN's tweet about, looking for a new analyst, that was ultimately what sparked my interest in esports the greatest, I would say. Kind of going from a commentator to officially getting into like the coaching thing. So I've always wanted to be a coach or analyst or something of the sorts that involved really showcasing my knowledge for the games that went all the way back to Overwatch. So whenever I saw that Dark Zero, a Houstonian org, was looking for an esports professional, I guess I immediately snatched on the opportunity. I definitely gave it my all. So um, it was awesome to be involved with them, and obviously there's a picture around of Texas A&M being able to join up with Dark Zero at their team house and just kind of spectate their match against SSG. Um, so that was certainly an incredible opportunity. And for the guys, for the my team members, they were like, "Oh man, this is once in a lifetime opportunity." And that's where I was at the time as well. But for me to work with them, because I wasn't affiliated with them at the time, so whenever you going from that to working with them, I actually I had a conversation with one of the players, and they asked me about, like, how is it visiting this time around, being a member of the team this time. And I said, I was like, "Oh, it was really awesome to come as a fan the last time, but now I'm here for, like, work. So I'm not anywhere nearly as excited. I'm mostly just, ready to get down to business."
There you go. There you go. So as you find your footing within the org and within the R6 team, what's that next step for you? Like, do you see yourself moving on to like a coaching position? Is there what do you want to do? Like, do you see yourself being an analyst for next several years? Like, what's your aspirations within esports?
So one of the great things about the position that I'm in now, I guess that I kind of forgot to bring up was, the fact that I have such great role models in BKN and BC specifically. And the reason that I mentioned them too was because BC was originally on for a coach, but transitioned into a player role. But the fact that I have those two great minds being able to lead me throughout my development stages, I guess that's certainly something that's definitely valuable. It's certainly a coveted place to be, and I'm definitely very um, thankful for that. And yeah, just to kind of add on to it, I love doing the analysis work. I've kind of done it for a few teams now in Siege. Just being able to break down opponents, or even our own team's gameplay and just kind of feed it back in a matter that's much more simple. I wouldn't mind being in that role. I know right now I'm trying to get into a spot where we kind of let's see. Since they're located in Houston, I'm in College Station. Obviously, just trying to get out there a little bit more and work with them more in person. That's what I'm trying to do right now, like in the present sense. But just down the road, being able to coach a team has always kind of been I guess, my driving force. I know that I kind of got involved in esports and casting, but coaching has always been where I've been really interested. However, I certainly get that opportunity with Texas A&M, so that's kind of like why I'm in the best of both worlds, right? I'm an analyst for Dark Zero, where I get to learn from some of the greatest minds that ever touched Siege, and then I get to kind of apply some of that information that I pick up from them and the team and kind of apply it to Texas A&M. So it's really been awesome. I can't complain at all.
I could definitely see that experience of working with Dark Zero and behind the scenes there and seeing how they run things and being able to take that to Texas A&M even as an administrative move and just being able to say this is how we should support esports and being able to say we're modeling ourselves off of professional teams and trying to legitimize through actual business application.
Yes, and I guess like I mentioned before, it would be awesome for us to be in an environment where we can sit down, all five or six of us, and being able to break down strats right next to each other. That's I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. Just being able to take what Dark Zero does, from their them playing together every day, and apply that to us here as a college team. Which not every team within the community has the availability to kind of sit down one on one and work together. So being able to see a team doing it right, certainly is a huge motivating factor for A&M.
Now, I have to poke at that real quick. The Texas A&M team, they never played together in the same room.
Let's see. Not in the same room. We don't have like a. Well, actually, no. I shouldn't say that. We actually have attended like two LAN. I guess three LAN events. Two that are local here in College Station, where where A&M is located. We've actually attended two here, and then we attended the Sam Houston State one. So every opportunity that we get to play together in person, we'll certainly take. I would say the last remaining thing that we need to do is have a place set up for six PCs in a LAN environment and being able to play our league matches there and also practice. That's kind of the next step. Hopefully, we can work with administration for that. It's kind of tough. That's the main.
So you've played together in LAN situations, but for
Yes.
your CR6 season, playoffs, grand finals, everyone's just hanging out in their dorm rooms talking over VoIP.
Oh yeah, we're actually all over the place. Let's see. We have a player like in Dallas, like I think multiple players in Houston, San Antonio. I was in like Northwest Houston, and then another one was still here in College Station. So yeah, we were all over the place. Like, we had a situation where one of our players went on a cruise, and then the day of the I believe it was the UCSD matchup, actually just got home and just got on his PC, started warming up, and was ready to go. So yeah, we have been all over the place during the playoffs.
Texas A&M, get your together. Play having your teams so disjointed like that. It's a three times the miracle that you guys made it to grand finals with the new roster, playing separate and scheduling conflicts and balancing your student workload. Like that just goes above and beyond just how much of a superhero team you guys had going.
Yeah, I think the players kind of overlook that aspect. It's certainly something I overlook until you just brought it up. Just like the amount of adversity that we had to overcome, I highlighted that more towards the middle of the season, where like I did mention that spring break thing, where we just had to we just had to play it out. But yeah, like that was something I was certainly proud of at the time. But now, yeah, you're certainly highlighting that even more. That we just and that's something that I guess we as a team have kind of looked at as like something to complain about, but at the same time, like man, that's something great to overcome, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a testament of how good you all are actually together, and that these things aren't going to hold you back. And in fact, when they're a non-factor next season, hopefully there's a room that you all can just bogart and just pile your PCs into from wherever you guys live, and then just go to town as a team. Like, as soon as you have that opportunity to not have that hurdle in your way, it's just going to set you all off. Like, I would love to know if U of H had a room where they were all sitting together and playing together until their fifth joined them, or like, did they have any sort of, I don't know, like regular room where they could practice just even off camera and out of the game? Like, what's their setup like? I'm gonna have to dig into that. But I
That
mean,
would be, yeah, that would be something that I would love for you to reach out to them and ask. And I would honestly, I would love to get to know more about the other Texas orgs. Like I know I'm a little biased to Texas, but just kind of it would be awesome for us to compare like where certain esports clubs are developed. Like Sam Houston State, I would strongly recommend reaching out to them. I'm not sure if you have already, but they would be a great guest to have on this podcast.
I usually end up relying on tracking them down on Twitter, and I don't know if I have found them.
They're probably, I mean, I don't have a whole lot to compare to, but they're probably the best fleshed out esports club that I've seen in Texas. There might be another one that I might be forgetting right now, but yeah, their program is great. I mean, like I don't know very many people or very many universities that would host lands. I think that every university that I've known of now, so like Texas A&M, I know hosted a LAN. Um, U of H tried to host a LAN, but unfortunately it was like during like Easter weekend, so we couldn't really attend that one. And then of course Sam Houston being able to, I mean, their LAN was huge. It was like in a convention hall. It was incredible. That was an awesome experience.
Oh, hey, I found them. There. I will have to send them a message and find out more about the Texas schools. Maybe that'll be the next focus is just exploring esports in Texas.
That I mean, like I know that to maybe viewers outside of Texas that might seem like very specific, but this right now is just kind of the growing place for esports. I know that I believe I heard news recently that Dallas is like opening up an esports convention or sorry, esports hall, I guess is the best way to put it, like a stadium, I guess. I know from firsthand experience that Houston is looking to develop an esports stadium, or I guess it's more like an entertainment hall, but it'll double up as that. And there might be one other place, maybe San Antonio or Austin. But yeah, it's
Arlington,
a growing
esports in Arlington,
right, right.
100,000 square foot space in Arlington. That opened up, and I think that was where the Dallas Fuel had their homestand event.
I think so. Yeah.
So we're at that hour mark. I don't want to keep you up too much later. Feel free to take the mic and go to town with your shout outs and just let people know where they can follow you and your amazing progress and just see what it takes to get involved in esports from someone who can officially say they've made it.
Yeah, there's too many people to shout out to the point where, I'd be talking for quite a bit here. But I know that the people who would be listening to this, would definitely understand that I would definitely be shouting them out. More specifically, obviously my parents for just allowing me to have this opportunity, right, and kind of grow in the scene. My teammates for just sticking with me the closest, and then obviously the subs as well. They really came in crucial moments where we needed a player to stand in, and they really came in at the 11th hour for us. Um, Aside from more people more closer to me, obviously Dark Zero being able to give me the opportunity to just really prove myself in the scene and just kind of put all of my knowledge to the test and continue to continue feeding me more knowledge, right, and use that information and put it right back into the thing that I'm working so hard for. So that's certainly an awesome opportunity. um I guess if in case anyone is like curious and following me, you can follow me at Twitter at East Central Gaming. I probably need to step up my Twitter game a little bit, but certainly post some interesting thing from time to time, and I would strongly suggest following any of the Texas esports schools. as well as Dark Zero for if you're looking to get into supporting a professional team. Dark Zero is definitely the place to be. And then also follow the Collegiate R6 Twitter so that way you can kind of see what all of these teams that we're currently talking about and kind of get excited for some of these teams as well.
I think I lost you for a second,
Oh no.
just at the very end
I kind
there.
of stopped talking very abruptly.
Okay, then I think it probably caught just fine. Everything went garbly for a moment, and then it's like, oh, I guess he's done.
Oh, all right.
No big deal. I think we got it all. So thanks for joining me tonight. It was great catching up with you, and I know it was kind of short notice, but I really appreciate you taking the time to do another podcast with me. And I look forward to hearing more about your adventures with Dark Zero and how you help shape Texas A&M going into the next season.
Yeah, and I love being a part of this podcast. It's certainly something that I like to support, especially the collegiate scene. It definitely needs a lot of help right now, and I'm really happy that you're covering it.
Well, thank you. And we'll just have to make this a more regular check-in, and we can dish on more matches as we have more information about how they go. So thanks again for everyone joining me in chat or who's going to be listening to the podcast in a couple days. I guess yeah, tomorrow's Friday, so this will go out on Monday. So I hope everyone enjoys the episode, and we will catch you next time on the Summoning Hour.